This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, hi everyone. So with family-centered coaching, the engagement process, it can be broken down into 5 different steps. So before moving on to the next step, does anybody remember what step 1 was from last week that we talked about?
Hill, was it like preparing for the intake or preparing to meet with your participants?
Yes, Eric, you are spot on. So it was preparing for a meeting. And with that, preparing for a meeting, we asked you guys to utilize the Ready to Coach Today checklist. Did anybody utilize that yet? Can anybody share their experience?
I did. I'll share. So I've had a couple of new clients participants that I've seen through the past couple of days, and I did the checklist. I'm pretty organized to begin with, so like it was pretty easy for me to get ready to do that. But the one thing I noticed is a lot of our paperwork throughout the agency says client on it. So it was really hard for me to say like participant when I'm reading through like our like client caseworker agreement because it says client in there like 100 times. So I'm like trying to like switch it around. So I'm not saying client and saying participant, but it was like difficult to like switch gears when you're reading like a paper to someone.
Oh yeah, I agree. We're actually in the process of changing all of that paperwork so that way it gets all updated. But thanks for sharing that, Amanda. So as we just said last week, we spoke about step 1, prepare for a meeting. So we touched on ways to enter into that family-centered coaching mindset, ways to clear your space, eliminate distractions, and build trust with your participant. So the steps for family-centered coaching are, number 1 is prepare for a meeting. Number 2 is build a relationship. Number 3 is focus our work. And number 4 is assess what role to play. And the fifth step is plan, do, review, which also holds accountability and puts support into play.
I have a question for you. Is this something that we should just start with our new people that we get that we're bringing in, or is it something that maybe we should follow up with people that, like, for example, that you're already involved at some point to try to incorporate this? And as far as the rental relief, you know, we're getting the information we need from people right now, but maybe like in later months as we follow up, see if they need additional assistance, this could be something we could use. I didn't know if that would be.
For sure. So definitely use it as you are getting new clients or getting new participants and families. But with our rental relief applications and applicants there, I don't necessarily know if you'll be entering into the coaching mindset exactly because they're in the case management phase. But I think further on, if they are wanting to further with blueprints and they want more services that we do provide, I definitely think that we should be integrating these steps with our current participants.
Because they may not realize they need something else, and then if you open that line of communication up, it could identify other programs they may be needing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a really good question. I definitely think we should start incorporating it a little and often as we can, just so that we get used to the verbiage that we're using between clients and participants. The more we use it, the better you're going to be at it anyways.
So just as Hilary said, today we're going to be talking about step 2, building the relationship. And we're going to be going over 2 different tools today that helps that process of building the relationship. So we do want to open it up and ask you, what are some ways that you currently build your relationship with your participants? Does anyone want to share?
So I'll go first just to ease everybody into it before we have to start calling on people. So the way that I build a relationship with my previous participants was I would find a common ground. So we both either have been through or some kind of common interest that we both have. And that's really by starting a conversation and building the relationship. And that's usually what I do.
Hillary, I was also going to say that too, just kind of find something in common to talk to them about. Sometimes just having a conversation with an individual brings up other things. So then they may want to be more comfortable with talking to you about other things later. So I think just kind of having a conversation with them and them feeling comfortable with what they're telling you.
Yeah, that's really good input, Tiffany. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Tiffany. That was really good. So the first time meeting with a parent is the beginning of creating that relationship with them, but it is an ongoing process. So as you go along with them during their journey here at Blueprints and your working relationship, your relationship will grow and you'll learn different things about each other, and it'll be easier to make those bonds and connections. So in the beginning, you want to talk about different things that's going to help that relationship, so such as preferred communication. Everyone is different in the way that they like to communicate, so just picking that up on day one is going to help that relationship grow. Finding out what barriers they're facing currently. Different programs at Blueprints can help with certain barriers. The strengths that they have, taking that strengths-based approach and kind of just complimenting and throwing that out there, the different strengths that they do have. And then also the different dreams and goals that they have for themselves and their family. So as the parent talks about their family and their life, listen for the people who are connected to their day-to-day life on a daily basis. Maybe it's their parents that offer them support, or maybe a neighbor or someone else in their life that helps with transportation or childcare. You also want to listen for the people who may not provide daily support, but provide emotional support, maybe on not a day-to-day basis, which both types of support are important for our participants. And today we're going to be showing you those two tools that's going to help find that information and gather that insight from them. So the first tool we're going to go over is called Who's in My Family. With this tool, it provides insight to the depths of the individual or parent support network and lets you know who to be sure to ask about in follow-up visits as well. So there's really no right or wrong way to define family. When we've done this in past sessions, people have put down their dog as providing emotional support, which is awesome. And then there's like their church or their daycare helps provide support as well. And who's in their family will change over time as well, and that's fine. So you use this tool to engage in a conversation with the parent. You can do that while you are together to help them understand and grasp the directions of the tool. Or if they feel more comfortable taking it home, once they understand the directions, you can have them take it home and fill it out and get input from their family as well. And once they bring it back, it can open up the door for additional questions too.
So here's an example of who is in my family. I'm going to go over the directions of what you guys would do with a participant. So you would write the name of each person who plays an important role in their family, and you need to have them think about their children, their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, as well as neighbors that they do consider family. So the people for this example, they consider Tina, Mom, John, Jay, Carol, etc. In their family. And then I'm going to describe the lines to you and how to draw those lines. So you would draw a solid line to the names of the people who rely on you for support, and you would draw a circle around the names of the people who provide a support to you. And then you would draw a dashed line to the names of the people who are important to you but aren't necessarily into your day-to-day lives. And while you're having them fill this out, you can ask them some discussion questions that can help them brew up some answers of who's in their family. And some of those questions could be, who do you consider to be a part of your family? Who helps you on a day-to-day basis? And that could be with either friends, family members, emotional support, who helps you with transportation, childcare, stuff like that. And who plays a role in taking care of your home life? So with that being said, we're going to take a couple minutes and we're going to have you guys do this activity too. So Liz actually had sent you guys a fillable PDF this past Friday. But if you don't have it, that's okay. We suggest you guys use it moving forward. She's going to pull it up, and this way you guys could do it with your participant. You could also have them take it home and do it with their family. If you guys cannot fill this out right now, you guys can get a scratch piece of paper and draw a circle on the middle of a piece of paper and put your name in the circle. And on the outside of that circle, you're going to think of important people in your life who support you or you support them. So I'll give you guys about a minute to complete that. And I'll describe the lines.
Hey, Hillary, I have a question. I forgot what you said. What was the solid line and the dotted line? What was the difference between them?
Okay, so the solid line, you're going to draw the names of the people who you rely on for support.
Okay.
And the dotted line, or the dashed line, whatever you want to call it, are the people who are important to you but don't necessarily aren't in your day-to-day lives. But they do provide support if need be, but they're just not in your day-to-day lives. And I know on this fillable PDF, we can't draw circles. So if you actually scroll down on the PDF, there's a space where you could type in and you could say, I circled this person, I support this person supports me, just for extra room if they realize that they have more people that they support. So I'm going to give you guys about another minute, and then I'm going to have Liz go over hers. And while we're waiting, I'm going to, I did this with my participants. I did it in two different atmospheres, I guess you could say. One was in a correctional facility with a room full of incarcerated individuals at the Washington County Correctional Facility. And as they were filling this out, they actually realized that they had more support than they thought they did when they first went in there. So it was kind of a positive eye-opener for when they got released, that they could reach out to those people who would help them. I also did this worksheet with my Getting Ahead class when I taught that previously, and it was an eye-opener for them as well, but they realized that they didn't have enough support in certain areas to be self-sufficient. A lot of people didn't have support in childcare for backups. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they go to a childcare agency, but what if that childcare is closed down for one day? You know what I mean? They didn't think of a backup plan or who else could support them in certain situations if their tire had went flat and how to get to work. So it was definitely an eye-opener in both situations, just because they realized what support systems they needed and what they had. So Liz, whenever you want to go over yours, you can.
All right, so over here on the solid line part, I included people who support me as well as people I support. So I have my grandma, my husband Brian, and then Harper, Quinn, and Landon. My dog is Ohana, and then daycare provides support to me for my daughter while I work. And then over on the dash line side, I have people who in my life who do provide support to me emotionally and everything, but they're not in my day-to-day life. So some of my family friends, Rick and Renee, and then my cousin, Sandy. And like Hillary said, if you are doing this virtually, this fillable PDF could help. You do that like virtually with your participants if you're meeting with them. And then if they do want to expand on their answers down here, or maybe there's not enough lines for them, if they have that much support, that's awesome. They can add more down here at the bottom. Does anybody want to share theirs?
Josh, how are you feeling with this? Would you like to share yours?
Yeah, I'll share mine, no problem.
Thanks, bud.
On mine, I have my wife, Anna Marie, and my son, Lewis. these are all on the solid lines. And I have my mom and my nephew William, who lives with my mom. And I have my in-laws. And on the dotted lines, I have my Uncle Joe and Aunt Joe and my cousins on his daughter and son and their families, and my Aunt Val and her family, and my brother and sister-in-law, and my niece and nephew from them. So I'm pretty lucky. I have a lot of support.
Yeah, you sure do. You have a big support system. Good for you, man.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
So do you think this will be helpful with our participants using this?
Yeah, I definitely do, because one of the big points you made about when you were in the jail, if you sit down and think about who you have in your network, a lot of times, well, if you're lucky, you'll realize you have a lot more support than you do.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing, Josh. So I want to make 2 points. Someone earlier in a previous training had mentioned that they work with teenagers, and a lot of times teenagers don't realize that they have as much support as what they do, and they feel alone and lonely. And they thought that this worksheet would help them feel more empowered and feel more loved just by gathering the support that is all around them. And another thing, Liz had put down daycare. I think that is a really good resource to use for her child, obviously. But when I did this previously with my incarcerated individuals, they put down church because they provide an emotional support. So it doesn't technically have to be a certain person. It could be a group of people or an agency that you go to often. And another thing I would like to add on to, our Aging Well services, they don't use Who's in My Family. A lot of them are elderly individuals, and so we have recreated their Who's in My Family to Who's in My World so that they can adapt to their situation. Does anybody have any questions so far about Who's in My Family? Okay.
I also wanted to add with this tool, we had someone mention in one of our previous trainings about like, okay, like, why is this important to understand who's in their family? And we think it is important, not necessarily to know who's in their family. We don't need to know they have an Uncle Sal or a Jimmy that they rely on. It's more about finding out their network of support. It's a tool that we can look back on when they get stuck in a certain situation and be like, okay, well, you listed your mom as being someone who provides support to you. Is she able to watch your child so you can go to work since daycare shut down? It's just about pointing that out, and we think it's really important. So during this initial meeting, even with a parent you've had for a while, there are some questions you can ask to help build that relationship. And some of those include, what are you most proud of? This is a good question to kind of dig into where they've been successful and what led them to that success. It's something that they can, admire about themselves. If our work together were to have a positive impact in your life, what would that look like? How would you prefer to communicate with me? And then how will I know if you're stuck? Which I think that's a really important one because not everyone's willing to admit that they get stuck. So just having kind of that conversation beforehand is going to help you guys get farther in your relationship. So as you get to know your participant and their supports and connections, you will then want to learn more about their goals and their hopes for themselves as well as their family. This will be a way to introduce the next tool we're going to be talking about, which is the My Hopes and Dreams tool. So you can ask the parent to talk about where the family has been successful, and this conversation prepares both of you to talk about areas that they need to improve in and areas that they need to grow in and different ways to help them grow so you can work together with them to lead them to those successes.
So with the new My Hopes and Dreams tool, it's supposed to be used in conjunction with the Who's in My Family. So once you have a sense of the family, you can more easily talk with the parent about their hopes and dreams at 3 different levels. And the 3 different levels are the overall family, and the other one is for their children. And the hardest one that they have to fill out is for themselves. But you need to be clear with the parent that the hopes and dreams may change as you guys work together, and which is normal and expected, and this is just simply a starting place. So here's a blank example of My Hopes and Dreams tool, which could also be found on SharePoint under the Family Center Coaching tab. And there are 3 different ways that you guys can use this tool with your participants. So you and your participant can use it as a discussion tool to help the parent reflect on the 3 layers of the goal and how all of them are very important. It may be easiest for a parent to identify goals for their children, but hardest to do it for themselves. And you need to help them reflect on how all 3 of the goals tie together and support the overall well-being of the family. So an example would be if a parent is wanting to return to school but has some doubts and is concerned that it'll negatively impact the children because there will be less time available, you need to reassure them how this goal will help the family in the long term. Another way to use this tool is you could discuss with the parents and have them take it home to have their family have an input in it. And then another way is when they bring it back, it can you can look at their responses, and it could also help you understand their priority areas and how to set goals for them as well. So Liz is going to pull up a fillable My Hopes and Dreams tool. So we would like everybody to take some time, and I'm going to read over the questions and we're going to answer them. I would like you guys to think of either yourself or a participant that you have in mind and answer these questions. We're also going to be doing the example of a participant that I had in my 2Gen program at one time. So the questions for the My Hopes and Dream. Now remember, there's 3 different aspects to it. One is the overall family. So what are your goals for your overall family? Are there things you would like to achieve in the next 3 to 6 months? So think of that in your situation, or think of it in a participant you have in mind for their situation. The next component is the children. I have noticed when I did this with my 2Gen family that this was the easiest one to talk about because they always have goals for their children and they always have the best intentions for them. But you want to think about their physical well-being, their social well-being, learning and thinking, communication, and their ability to take care of themselves. And you also want to think about some of their strengths and what are some of their challenges and the concerns that you have. Another talking point you would like to talk about with their children, what short-term, give or take about 3 to 6 months, hopes or goals do you have for each child? And what is your biggest worry for each child? And the next component, it's about themselves or you guys, and it is what are your goals for yourself? Are there goals or things you would like to do differently? Every time that I have done this with a participant, they have not filled this out in front of me because it's kind of a difficult question for them. Some of them have never realized or have never set goals before, so they have actually taken it home to their family. The 2Gen person that I had used in my example, I had asked her if she'd ever considered going to school to become an RN because she always says how she likes to help people and she was passionate about the nursing field. And I asked her, and I was the first person to ever ask her if she ever considered going to school, and how it never got talked about in her home as she was being brought up. However, in my home, it was an expectation. So that's also how the different economic levels in society can play a role with our participants. So I'm going to share mine, and then I'm going to ask one of you guys to share yours. So the goal for her overall family was to find stable housing. I would like to note that this could be a long-term goal. 3 to 6 months isn't long, but this was a goal that we have been working on for a long, long time. And we, when she first enrolled in Blueprints, she was in a homeless shelter, and she told me she had stable housing, which I can't knock her for that. That was the most stable housing her house has ever been in the past 5 years. She was living in a tent before then. But I had to let her know that a homeless shelter, you can only live there for about 8 months, and then they try to transition you out, try to find you other means to live, and she didn't realize that. And so that's when we came up with a goal to find stable housing. But in order to find stable housing, I had to help her with employment. I had to help her with childcare. So there's other things that came into play before stable housing. This was kind of a top-notch goal. We had plenty of other steps to take before this 3 to 6 month goal. Her hopes and dreams for her children. This was a very, very easy discussion for her. She is very driven by her children. She is very, very proud of them. The concerns that she has was she feels that one child might be a little bit delayed developmentally, but socially she is very strong. So she was just saying her concerns about that and strength of her child. And then her youngest, which her and I actually had a lot in common with her youngest, because she was worried that her physical features were going to be a little misconstrued because of a binky. And I was going through the same thing at that time because my daughter had a hard time getting rid of the binky. So it actually messes up the mouth a good bit, and so she was concerned about the physical features of her child. Her short-term goals that she had for the child was just to brush up on learning skills, and she has admitted that since enrolling her child in Early Head Start, that her child has made huge leaps on her learning skills. So she was really excited and proud about that. The hopes and dreams I had for her, she did not answer this question in front of me. She ended up taking it home, and she had to brew on it a little bit because I mentioned going to school to become an RN, and she didn't even know that was possible. She never even considered it before, so she went home. It probably took her a good 3 weeks before she got back to me, but she decided that that's what she wanted to do. But in order to get her enrolled in an RN program, she was worried that she felt almost academically delayed. So in order for that to happen, we enrolled her in our family lit program, and we brushed her up on skills with reading, writing, and math so she could pass her entrance exam. So would anybody like to share either their situation for my hopes and dreams or have a participant in mind? And I know if you're working with Aging Well, Tiffany, you probably won't talk about the children, so you could probably exclude those ones, or teenagers.
I was going to say, yeah, our stuff is a little different.
Yeah.
Our individuals' hopes and dreams are a little different as well. So I will go ahead and just talk a few minutes about mine. So like for a lot of our consumers, the one lady I was thinking about in particular, transportation is a concern for her. So we're having trouble getting to the doctors, getting to the grocery store, those kind of things. So when you talk to her about, you know, what her hopes or dreams may be, a lot of ours for seniors is independence, to be able to live on their own and remain in their home. And so trying to set them up with support systems and talk to them about different things. So like with her, she had difficulty walking, and so she couldn't drive. So we did have to look at the transportation issue for her. And then a lot of our consumers that we deal with are on our end, our individuals are called consumers instead of clients. So we do use the term consumer. But a lot of them, you think older adults have family support. But unfortunately, we do have individuals where we run into that the bridges have been burned with family members. And so maybe the child or grandchild is not helping mom or dad anymore. And so then we have to, you know, work with them to try to find out some other support systems for them, because family is no longer an option at this point. So the part where it has where we talked about different things for her as far as what her goal would be, and again, it's basically to remain independent and her to be able to do things on her own, like be able to get on the transportation bus, go get her own groceries and things like that, because at this point we have her set up for like grocery delivery. It's a service because she's not able to get out to get her groceries. So on our end of individuals, there is a little bit of different things that we work with our consumers with, but still, even, you know, someone in their 60s, 70s, they still have goals of some sort at that age. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that was wonderful. Somebody mentioned earlier that they work with teenagers, and it was a young teen and their child has behavioral issues, and basically their goals, and I should consider this, but one of their goals was just to keep up on hygiene. And I almost forget what it's like to be a teenager and in those teenage years. And I was like, wow, that's a really good goal. I could almost completely forget about that. But even a goal just as like keeping up on your hygiene skills is even a goal. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty brilliant that they even mentioned that.
that's also a goal for like our older adults, for them to still be able to bathe themselves, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Does anybody else like to share their story? Okay.
All right. So that tool can be found on the Family Center Coaching tab on SharePoint, and we also emailed it out to you in case you want to start using it. So another aspect of building your relationship with your participant is checking in regularly. It's kind of a no-brainer, but this is a good way to know if they are working towards their goals, where they stand with them. Maybe they want to change goals at this point, something's more pressing in their life. And this communication will help build trust between the both of you as well as the relationship. So you should also check in to see if the process between the coach and the participant is working properly. Maybe there needs to be some adjustments made on either side. So you can decide on a regular check-in time with one another and create that mutual accountability between the both of you, and be open to adjusting anything that needs to be adjusted to make it work more smoothly. So building the relationship between the participant and the caseworker also needs to involve active listening. And this is really important because it lays the foundation for establishing that trust and building that relationship. There are 5 key active listening techniques that we're going to go over with you guys. These techniques just ensure that the participant is being heard and they understand that they are being heard and you're present and engaged in what they are saying. So the first technique is very simple, but it's true. Pay attention. So give the participant your undivided attention when you meet with them. So they understand that you are acknowledging their message. Nonverbal communication also is a big. It also speaks very loudly and is very important to pay attention to. Look at them directly, because eye contact can confirm to them that you are present and engaged in what they're trying to say. Put aside distracting thoughts like we talked about last week and prepare for the meeting. Turn off your cell phone, silence your Teams messages and email dings. Maybe jot down a list that you can revisit afterwards if you're distracted. Also, don't mentally prepare a rebuttal. A lot of times when we meet with a participant, we already have something formulated in our head, a response to what they're going to say before they're even done talking. But it's really important with this coaching model to take in everything that they're saying, read between the lines and listen to what they're saying before offering advice or your opinion to what their situation is. And also listen to their body language. It could be very telling on how their day is going, or maybe they just encountered a barrier in their life that you could talk about. It could open up the door to another conversation. So just be aware of their body language if they're kind of closed off or opened up to a coaching session.
So the second technique is to show that you're actually listening. And you could do that by using your own body language to convey your attention. You need to nod occasionally, smile, and use other facial expressions to what they're saying. Note your posture and make sure that it's open and inviting, and encourage them to continue with small verbal comments such as yes or uh-huh. And this can also translate to our virtual meetings as well. The third technique is to provide feedback. Sometimes our personal beliefs can distort what we hear our participants say, and as a listener, your role is to simply understand what is being said. And some ways that you guys can provide feedback is to reflect on what the participant said, and by paraphrasing your response. And some ways to paraphrase your response is, what I'm hearing is you need help finding childcare. Or another way is, sounds like you're saying you need childcare.
So the fourth technique is to defer judgment. Pretty straightforward, but interrupting the participant and what they're trying to say is just a waste of time, because it will lead to frustration between the both of you and also could hinder your relationship with them. It also can limit your understanding to their situation. So we really need to make sure we set those judgments aside and allow them to finish each point before asking questions and interrupting with counter arguments. And the final technique is to respond appropriately. Active listening in itself is a model of respect and understanding. And it's a way to not only gain information, but really a perspective to what the participant is going through, the different barriers and challenges that they may face. So, so just be candid and honest with them in your response. If you have opinions to share, you can do so respectfully. You know, when you're at that point in your relationship that you can be totally honest with your participant and offer those opinions to where they'll be able to take it better. So, and as the old adage says, treat them the way that you would want to be treated. So now Hilary and I are going to have kind of a coach-parent meeting that we're going to display, and we're going to be using some of these techniques that we went over. So we want you to listen for as much detail as possible and some of the different techniques we're going to be using, and we'll go over those afterwards. So I'm going to play the first-time participant, and Hilary's going to be the coach.
So as we're playing out the scenario, we want you guys to just be aware of the 5 techniques that we went over, because we're going to ask you guys about them. So good morning, Liz. What brings you to Blueprints today?
So I work at a low-wage job, and I'm looking to get on a better career path so I have a better financial situation for my daughter and I. Okay,
so can I ask, what kind of employment do you currently have?
Right now, I clean houses and businesses because of my childcare situation.
Okay, I gotcha. So what kind of interests do you have that could be strengths for your future career?
Well, I've always been interested in a career that I could help people. So I thought about maybe nursing.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that you would like a career path that allows you to help people while also making a livable wage for you and your daughter. Is that correct?
Yeah, I really think that I could thrive in that kind of career.
Okay, so I think that's important to note that strength. I also noticed that you currently have a barrier to childcare. Is that correct?
Yes. Right now I only have someone available to watch my daughter at night, so that's when I'm able to work.
Okay, I understand that. Childcare can be a huge barrier to employment. So let's look up some possible options for you. So let's take a minute to go over the details of the dialogue that Liz and I just gave you guys. So what are some techniques that you noticed, or what are some details that you remember?
You identified what the barrier is with the childcare, and that was
Yeah.
like right first off, so you can kind of build from that
Yeah,
with the
good.
conversation.
You didn't interrupt or judge her current position.
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. Josh, your mic's on.
You provided feedback about her strength, and she wanted to help people.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for all those answers. Yeah, you guys are absolutely right. I did all those things, and I would just like to note that active listening could play a huge role along with the other tools that we provided today.
I think sometimes too, somebody just letting them know they can do something.
Yeah.
You could do this because a lot of times they're just always giving negative feedback. So sometimes it just could be someone giving some encouragement.
Right. I think that's perfect too.
Yeah, definitely offering that strengths-based approach that we talked about. That's going to provide a lot of confidence to them and kind of empower them on this journey. And that's what the family-centered coaching is all about, you know. But that is all we have for today. Does anybody have any questions about what we went over as far as the techniques or the two tools that we talked about today? Nope, I'm seeing some head shakes. So we do ask that you download those tools. Like I said, they're under the under SharePoint, under the Family Centered Coaching tab, and we also emailed them out to you last Friday. So we are asking that you use one or both of these tools with an active participant before our next meeting. We're trying to gather some other insights, and we just kind of want to see how it went. So please do that before our next meeting next week. And that is all we have for you guys today. So we really appreciate your participation, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye.